It's not my job to be likable. It's my job to bring the pain. I think it's what my job.
I know who you are, and I'm gonna put you where you belong.
Now, Carter's job in Ghost Season 4 is to bring the pain. MacLean says we can speculate all we want, but we're not ready for what he's about to do as his character as Detective Don Carter. But now that we're 3 episodes in, I think we've got a pretty good idea in terms of who he is, what he's about, his motivations, and what drives him to putting away these criminals. However, I still don't think we've seen what he's fully capable of. You can tell, he is someone who's holding back, or he's got some deeper secrets, or a dark backstory which we haven't heard yet. I think from what we've seen from him so far, it has been controlled aggression. He's been aggressive with his approach, but in a calm manner at the same time. He's shown that he's willing to push the boundaries with his approach, and there's still so much more to come from his character. So, in this breakdown, we're going to run through Detective Don Carter's game plan and his next move in all things Power Book 2 Ghost Season 4.
He has a dark past that, is kind of tragic in terms of losing his wife. He's a prime example of how we all mourn and grieve differently.
Now, just before the season began, this was the character description that we were given for his character. Detective Don Carter is a rising NYPD officer who was on track to become police commissioner. That was until his wife was killed in a crossfire between 2 rival drug gangs. Vowing to make the streets a safer place, Carter traded his tie-in for a Kevlar vest, and now he leads an elite NYPD drug task force that elicits concrete results against drug-related violence. While his achievements are noteworthy of public recognition, nothing can bring back his lost love. Now, we learned a bit about his history and what motivates him towards the end of episode 401. We saw him at the church having a conversation with the priest. He spoke about his wife, Denise, someone who was murdered in the streets in a crossfire between 2 rival drug gangs. And just a quick one on Denise. I know there were quite a few questions in terms of who was Denise? Did she have any connections back to OG Power, or in any kind of crossfire we might have seen in Power? I personally don't think so. Not everybody in Power has to be connected, so it does seem like Denise was just someone who was caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, just like Kenya was in Raising Kanan. But MacLean mentioned how Detective Carter is a character who is a prime example of how we all grieve and mourn differently. People deal with the death of a loved one a lot different. It's based on personality, coping mechanisms, support systems, and the circumstances surrounding the death also makes a huge difference, especially in Carter's case. Denise was killed by 2 rival drug gangs on the streets, and she was taken away from Carter when she shouldn't have been. Now, he's filled with a lot of bitterness, anger, and wrath, but he never took any time out from work to properly get over Denise's death. He went straight back to work to try and put every single drug dealer he could get his hands on behind bars, or even worse.
Drug dealers are like cockroaches. It's impossible to eradicate. Believe me, I tried.
He referenced how drug dealers are like cockroaches, impossible to eradicate. He's tried. So, I do think Carter is that kind of cop, who takes it to that kind of level, which we haven't seen just yet, but it definitely is coming soon.
Son of James St. Patrick, one of New York City's biggest pieces of shit. No code, no loyalty, just shit, really. And you smell just like him.
Now, his conversation with Davis, MacLean, and Tariq revealed just exactly who they were dealing with. He wasn't any ordinary kind of law enforcement officer that they've dealt with before. Where we've previously seen Blanca Rodriguez and Jenny Sullivan working in the background to build their case in silence, Carter is someone who's the complete opposite. Blanca and Jenny didn't want to spook or let it be known they were investigating Tariq St. Patrick because they didn't want to give him any opportunity to get ahead of their case. But Carter, he doesn't care. He's made it pretty clear what his plans are. In fact, he told Tariq to his face, he knows who his father is, he smells just like him. Tariq's innocence was also laughed at because Carter also knows who he is, and he's going to put him where he belongs, in Carter's words. I also love the fact that he knows how to poke his enemies. He loves playing on the psyche of his opponents. He tapped Davis on his suit just before he left his office, and he gave Tariq a small slap on the cheek at Stansfield. It's a display of dominance and control. It shows that he's the one who's got authority and superiority in that particular situation. Getting physical is also a way where you can kind of unsettle your suspect and break down their psychological defense, because you could tell Carter really was kind of analyzing everything right down to Tariq's breathing.
I see keeping that heart rate down. Keeping your breathing nice and slow. Oh, you're a good fucking liar. This is gonna be fun.
So this particular situation was Carter's way of having the final word. Sometimes it doesn't have to be verbal, a tap on the shoulder or a cheek is just there to have the final word and to show Carter's confidence. Now at the end of 402, he picked up Obi because he traced a number of calls between him and one Tariq St. Patrick, and this is where we started to learn a little around how he's willing to push the boundaries to get what he wants. He never had any pictures of him and Tariq. He also wasn't afraid of Perla Tanaka's threats to go to the media because he was confident in himself to nail the entire drug network before it became a problem. He knows drug dealers don't respect boundaries, so he isn't afraid to push them either. So, just looking at this from his perspective and the perspective of law enforcement, he definitely isn't wrong. To catch these drug dealers, especially on Powerbook 2 Ghost, which does seem like a bit of an impossible task based on recent history, you are going to have to push the boundaries. Like he said, they're almost impossible to eradicate. Now on the Obi situation, we did have Davis MacLean tidy up for Noma. He produced documents to suggest Obi and his brother made an escape to Dubai, a non-extradition country. However, will Carter believe that they fled? Probably not. We should know by now he's clever enough to know what happens in the streets and what happens in the drug organizations. So I'd like to think he'd know exactly what happened to Obi, but he does now have someone else, Roman Price. This task force was very quick to connect the dots from this drug shipment back to Roman, and they picked him up pretty much straight away. Again, it just shows you how Carter's task force is very different compared to the previous task forces we've seen on Ghost, who are very slow to react, always being outsmarted by Tariq, Davis MacLean and the Tejadas. And I think from Carter's introduction, they're constantly warning us in different ways that this task force, and Detective Carter in particular, really is a different proposition.
He's hungry as fuck, Tariq. And it won't be long before he finds another way in.
Now going forward, what's Carter's next move? For one, I really wouldn't be surprised if he strong-arms Roman Price. He'll know that he's lost Obi, but Roman is someone that he can definitely begin to turn. So, could he force him to work undercover, potentially as a CI? And on that particular topic, I did raise another point in my live spaces I do every week on Twitter with my co-host DJ and Rudy P Magic. I raised the point of how I wouldn't be surprised if Elle is someone who's undercover, because I honestly didn't like the way she questioned Braden in 401. The first thing she said was her dealer was out of town, and I do feel that is just kind of one to watch, but I do run those live spaces every week on Sunday evenings, so if any of you guys have an hour to spare, definitely come join us, because we will be doing a lot more Q&As and debate style conversations in terms of breaking down episodes and also kind of discussing what's happening in the Power universe. But with Carter, I wouldn't be surprised if he begins to turn the screw on Roman and also Monet. It has been said that he will be showing up to question some of these players with Kamal Tate, but we've already seen him question Davis and Tariq, so I personally think it might be Monet's turn. So let's see when and if he questions Monet and how he approaches this conversation in comparison to his conversations with Davis and Tariq. Now we will also see him pull the trigger on a street soldier when he catches Drew and one of his soldiers. So this goes back round to the point in regards to cockroaches. He said they're impossible to eradicate, but he isn't afraid to go to that level to get rid of these drug dealers. But when he does, is this the moment where he wraps Drew around his finger? There's definitely going to be a few chess moves from Carter. We know he's going to try and get these guys to play against each other, and when the opportunity arises, he will be there to strike. Now having said all of that, what's Carter's endgame? How will the story end for Detective Carter? I personally think he will go down towards the end of season 4, but before he does, I do think he will take a few players with him. Whether it's death or jail, or a combination of both, I do think they have foreshadowed and teased that Carter will pick up a big win. I can imagine a scenario where Monet loses her kids, and where she could end up in prison, very similar to how Power ended up with Tasha in handcuffs. So that's just a little prediction, but at the same time, I don't see Carter surviving either. So that's a breakdown of where we are in terms of Carter's influence so far in Ghost Season 4. He definitely is going to be a formidable force to be reckoned with, and I think they've only scratched the surface with his character and what he's capable of. There definitely is more to come. So drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section. Do you guys think Carter will do what previous task force have failed in? Will he get one of the big players? Drop all your thoughts and predictions down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.